Hey everybody, what's up? This is Ash here for the Triple S League. I'm here with Cybsidian as per usual, and we are going live with this news update stream today to talk about Dragon Age 4. There is some interesting news out of BioWare this week. Another bombshell report from Jason Schreier over at Kotaku. He's been working hard lately.
Well, as we talked about in
yeah,
the last podcast, his job and livelihood is kind of on the line right now. So he's gonna wanna try and get as much positive press, so to speak, as he possibly can. And doing deep dives into this kind of content and exposing and bringing out this kind of stuff is honestly, pretty important, pretty helpful to what he's wanting. I wanted to talk about it because, as you know, and as I've said a long time, for quite a while, we're pretty connected with the BioWare office, especially the one in Canada. And we know a fair number of people who work there, and I'm under an NDA for some of the content and stuff that they're working on, and Morrison and Joplin were those things that I was under an NDA for. Still technically am, but the cat's out of the bag now. So I'm going to talk a little bit about mostly what was in the article, what Jason Schreier had in the article, and kind of what Joplin was lining up to be, and then how it's going to work going forward. Also, a huge little blurb here. This is not official. Of course, this is not official, and this is not the info that I was under NDA for. This is info that I have through contacts at the company, and that is going to be the release date. Okay. When is Dragon Age 4 releasing?
Wow. Okay.
And we're going to cover this first here. So anything?
Yeah. Well, let's just lay the groundwork. As to what's actually happened. So, of course, on the heels of his very, very important report about the development process of Anthem, Jason Schreier has come out with another report now about the development process of Dragon Age 4, and it turns out that there's been actually two Dragon Age 4s. There was one that was in production prior to Anthem, and it was called Project Joplin. And Cyb will go into a little more detail in a second about what that looked like, but turns out that one got canceled, outright canceled. Not delayed, not anything, just canceled. And it looks like that was in favor of putting resources into the development of Anthem. And then another version of Dragon Age 4 was started up. And
hence the title. Basically, we had an existing Dragon Age 4 that was canceled in lieu and in favor of a new Dragon Age 4 that had a totally different focus.
Yeah. Like, so the original was supposed to be, your kind of what we used to expect from BioWare, your narrative-driven single-player game, not necessarily without a multiplayer component, but the narrative-driven game. And the new one that's come around, which is codenamed Project Morrison, is going to be a live service game, and that could mean a number of things. But coming on the heels of Anthem, and especially considering that this is a game that's going to be built on Anthem's code base, it's not very hopeful news here.
Well, one of the core devs that was interviewed by Jason Schreier actually said what's on our thumbnail, and that was the quote that basically this is the Anthem with dragons. Now, there's a couple things that we need to correct with this, as well as point out the fact that that two of the other team members, actually several of the other team members, openly said no, this isn't Anthem with dragons. That's an overstatement and an inflammatory one based on somebody being unhappy about the project. This is not going to be Anthem with dragons, but this will be an Anthem type game where it's live service with dragons, and basically not really that keen on following through with the lore. And so we're going to really go into what that means. And
sounds like Anthem with dragons to me.
Yeah, so depending on your interpretation or your definition of what Anthem with dragons means, then this is either very accurate or not accurate at all. So I need to make that stipulation because I don't want people to be sidelined in either space. I don't want you to be coming into this thinking that all hope for this series, all hope for this IP are totally out the window, or that this is, you know, that none of the good things, if you were a fan of the good stuff that Anthem did bring, that those aren't going to be in the game either. You know, obviously the studio is trying to make something that people will play. So they're going to try to learn what they can from previous mistakes and try to do something to guarantee a successful product. As much as EA is filled with people who don't understand gaming and are complete and total, what's the word? I'm trying to find something that's nice, but morons, I guess is the best term I can give for it.
That's an insult to morons, but okay, we'll allow it.
It is an insult to morons, and people will say, but Saib, the EA is making tons of money, and they just made a killing off of Apex. And yes, that is what it is, but it's also the fact straight out that EA, it's not a question of whether EA is you know, keeping their head above water. It's how much further above that could they be. You know, how much further could they be ahead if they actually developed a system and a world where they could make games that are super complex, have deep depth to them, have these huge interconnected worlds that give you a constant stream of solid content while maintaining a respectable level of you know, secondary monetization in a world where you're happy to give them an extra $50 a month because it's well earned. And that's the thing. We're not against these companies making money, and we're not against somebody spending a lot of money on any game that they want. I spend a lot of money on indie games, and I do so because it's I believe that's where the future of gaming is at, but also the fact that I really enjoy these games. And there's a lot of games and there's a lot of indie devs that give me more enjoyment out of their games, out of their writing, out of their worlds, out of their creation than I ever get out of anybody. And I'm more than happy to, you know, plop down a continuous stream of money for a lot of that stuff. There's 2 projects that I'm working on right now that I'm fairly connected with, and those projects are things that I'm not just in, you know, intellectually. I'm also in there helping them financially. And this is the stuff that's important, and we'll talk about this later. So it's not a question of whether or not EA is making enough money to keep their investors happy. It's like, how much more money could they be making if they actually gave us an Anthem that was worth a damn, if they actually had given us a Mass Effect that was worth a damn, if they'd actually, you know, continued to give us not only just the current hip games, you know, the current hip battle royales, but also games that gamers actually really cared about, a deep connected, you know, world. And this is what we're going to get in with basically what they had worked with Joplin was about, is that Joplin was a world that you could make a humongous number of choices. Like, you thought previous Dragon Age games had a lot of choices. Joplin was designed to be the most choice-ridden game ever created. The fact that you could sit down, play through a game that by and large still had a couple of the main endings, and you go, oh no, not Mass Effect 3 all over again. Yes, but a little bit differently. There's you know, if I say a group of people fought against this thing in this one city and they ultimately overcame it, or maybe they all died trying to. Between the 2 possible endings there, you can have an entire army live or die. So, you know, you could have
Right.
you could have entire romances exist or not. And so that's what they want to do. They wanted to do more of that kind of stuff where the story is yours, the world that you create is yours, the experience that you have is by and large really unique according to what other players could come up with. If you wanted to make it, this was one of the concept ideas that was thrown out. So this is where we get into spoiler territory for what Joplin was designed for. You would have a team that would go on these missions, and a lot of these missions were going to take place in kind of a spy-rich culture. So you could go on a mission and not kill a single person. You could use persuasion, bluffs. You could use diplomacy. If you needed to get to a certain object, instead of sending a group of soldiers to, attack the front gates, you could send a pair of assassins in to do it stealthily, or you could basically waltz in there with an army of women of the night, harlots, that would basically just treat all the these poor frustrated soldiers to a wonderful evening, and basically take what you needed and walk out. They were creating a world that you could do all of those options. If you had an army of courtesans and like I said, women of the night that were made up your core team of agents, you could do that if you wanted. If you wanted to have an entire army full of brutish thugs that spoke with their axes more than their words, you could do that. And all of this would work together to create a world that you wanted. But now that all got thrown out with the dish that got entirely chucked out. And it's not that we won't see some of those technological things, and now we're going to get into why they dropped Joplin for Morrison. What they've done and what they had is that Joplin was built off of the tech and the work that they had done on the code base for the first for the last Dragon Age game, Dragon Age Inquisition. The newest code system, although you wouldn't think it because it was such a pile of garbage, is actually far more advanced within Anthem than it was in the engine that they were working on for Joplin. So basically, they've had a considerable upgrade in what they can do when they head back to making Dragon Age 4 with a whole bunch of things. However, you might say, is that really possible? And there's two stipulations, again, that I need to point out. There's more technology that's based on the multiplayer systems in the new Morrison code than there was in the Joplin code. There was more advances in some of the core roleplay mechanics in Joplin than there was in Morrison. And there's more stability in Morrison than there is in Joplin. So basically, they looked at it. EA said, hey, we want you to focus on multiplayer. And basically, they said, well, I guess we'll use the code base that we have for Anthem. And again, you're going to be like, going, WTF, this is a terrible idea. And for the most part, I agree. I do. From a technical perspective, I have people who are trying to convince me that, look, no, this is actually a good thing because we're going to be able to incorporate a lot of those things from the Joplin code into the new Morrison code, and we'll be able to get some of that stuff to cross over, but not all of it. And all of it is the stuff that I was really, really interested in. I was really anticipating this title. I really was certain that this was going to be what was going to bring old BioWare back. I never had that much hope for Anthem, generally speaking. I don't have that much hope for Mass Effect because they're so far off the mark with that. But basically, they're sitting there with these massive issues, and I don't know if they can pull through or not. However, it was the Dragon Age 4 content that they were working on, adding a world that evolved around your choices more than any BioWare game had ever been able to do. Fully integrated systems with AI that would generate new content and quests that you could come at from a new direction, that would constantly challenge you and give you something new to work on. There was a lot more. You'll hear this in the Kotaku article. You also hear this from some other people who are close to the project, saying that basically it was a lot of heist type gameplay, making a plan, working on the plan, and then having one or two wild cards thrown in that you have to react to while you're going through with the heist. And suddenly you're like, oh crap, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And so this forces you to make choices on the fly. This ramps up the difficulty and ramps up the level of of interaction that you have with it. And this is something I was just talking, like, just literally minutes before we started, with another dev working on a brilliant project. And we were talking about difficulty in games and how much of a difficulty spike is good or bad. And this is exactly what was going on within the game, within the code that they were building. I don't know how much of that, if any of that, is going to be able to make it to the new game, especially considering, and this is the big news drop, that the release date, they want to ship this within 2 years.
How long have they been working on it?
Well, and here's the thing. So right now they have not switched fully over to the new mode. And you're like, what have they been doing for the last 2 months? Like, they've barely worked on Anthem, and Anthem is now in the hands of Austin. WTF are they working on? They're transitioning over to it slowly. So the transition is going a little bit slower than they want. The entire team is not currently set up. But they want to have this thing shipped within 2 years. I just don't know exactly when the date of that 2 years starts. Does that mean that they want to have this out in 2 years, within 2 years, going back like a month or two, which means that we're going to see this thing basically in, like, less than 2 years? We'll see this in basically 2021 in the spring, or maybe in the fall before that, which would be really, really short window? Or do they mean 2 years starting from, next month, which is going to change it significantly, and then it'll push to either, a really early fall title or a really late spring title, early summer title type thing. What exactly are they doing there? What exactly are they working on as far as the date goes? That I have not confirmed, but this I can confirm is that they are wanting to spend no more than 2 years in the deep development cycle of this. They want and they need to get these games out faster, and we're seeing this all across the industry. Everybody agrees that spending 8 years on a project is ludicrous, dumb, and absolutely not healthy towards your game sales. It just is not working. They have to come up with a faster way to process this. And what we saw in Anthem, and what we saw in a lot of these games that have come out, is that the bulk of the time that's in development between one title and the next is on useless, pointless stuff that can be completely removed just by having better team leads. Having team leads that have a more confined vision and have a more strict regiment of what they're going for, instead of, and we covered this not only in what happened with Anthem, but what happened with CDPR, is that these team leads would go play a game on the weekend, go, oh my god, this is a great thing in this game, I want to totally replicate this, but I need to make it look like my own idea. So they'd spend the next 3 months trying to figure out how to cram this idea into the game, and then not utilizing that technology at all.
Mm-hmm. But if BioWare was suffering from this flawed management process throughout the whole course of the development of Anthem that caused a whole ton of problems, are they really going to be able to switch gears and improve so quickly that they could get another massive game like Dragon Age out within 2 years?
It's possible. It's possible. I've seen harder things be completed by
seems like a lofty
people.
goal. Like, it just seems like a lofty goal.
It does seem like a lofty goal,
to turn the ship around that quickly.
But you got to remember that Anthem, what we got on launch day for Anthem, was built in 9 months.
So right. So I guess from that perspective,
imagine if they had taken double the time, so another 9 months, so 18 months in total of that level of work, but with an actual refined vision for what they were going for.
Right.
You'd have a game that may or may not be what you want from BioWare. You may not want. I never wanted Anthem, and I don't know anybody who was like,
wanted Anthem.
Gee,
nobody was like, hey, you know what, BioWare? Here's what you should do. You should take that Mass Effect franchise that we love so much,
throw it in the toilet, and come
just
up with
forget
something
about that and come up with something
the same thing,
new.
But just with a trash storyline.
Yeah.
It's like
nobody asked for Anthem.
Mm-hmm. And so what we're seeing and what we're being told from what I'm being told from many of the contexts is that they're going to try and replace as much of those issues as they possibly can. The things that were holding them back, they're going to dump as many of those things as possible and approach this from a new direction where they can finally tweak and generate the response and generate the content that they want to without having to fly into the wall, so to speak. And so that's going to be the difficulty. And the difficulty of them is going to come down to their team leads, and it's going to come down to Casey's leadership and whether or not they can pull this through. Casey, I don't know him as well as I knew other people. I knew a lot of the older core devs a lot better than I know Casey and some of the other people that are currently leading the pack over there. You know, the other big thing here is that Mark Laidlaw left. That the project that he was working on, Joplin, was his baby and was going to be the pinnacle of his work with this series. The amount of core depth, and then he turned around and he left when they canceled it. When they said, no, we don't want a game where you make hard choices and come up with amazing content and an entire world. We want a game where we can shove microtransactions down your throat every week. And that's
can't
why
blame
Mark
the guy
left.
for bailing on that.
No,
I mean,
we
that's got to
can't
be utterly defeating, and that's my concern.
And again,
a lot of these things.
Yeah. And again, to really enforce this, Mark is now working with most of the... He's an independent now. He's working on multiple... Just like Chris Avalon, who we interviewed yesterday, if you want to give that a listen. He's now independent. Just like Chris, they can work on multiple titles at once. And Mark right now is working on a large project in connection with Fogbank Entertainment, which is a company that's basically built up from the old core people from BioWare and a couple other really great studios. These are old school gamers with the absolute best performance and best products shipped in the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. So these are old school developers who left their big cushy offices with giant money from big ass corporations that don't give a damn about what the players actually want. These are the guys who left those companies, formed their own company, and are working on their own their own dream project. So Fogbank is where it's at. I'm telling you, this is constantly building up towards something new, something great. They are super quiet on what they're working on right now. I've not been able to penetrate that ship at all. But this is the best of the best working on this stuff. They're keeping this close to the chest because this next game, this project that they're working on, is basically going to set for the next couple of years. So we're really at a crossroads. Are we going to get more of the crap that we've been getting from Activision and EA? Are they going to run the table for the next series of projects, or are bigger companies that like Microsoft, who has dumped $500 million into the next Halo game, this Halo game that was teased, this Halo game that is supposedly incorporating new technology that we've never seen in an open world game ever. This is stuff that's on the horizon. This is the company that's now funding, the Outer Worlds and Obsidian, saying, look, make a good game and ship it. And again, the whole Epic deal was not there. They had no control over that. And we've covered that in depth. So ignore that little hiccup, because going forward, they will never publish with 2K again. It is being all of their future games from here on out, from after the Outer Worlds going forward, all of their games are being built and shipped with Microsoft, who has a very strong foundation with both Steam and also the fact that they've said that they're not interested in exclusives like that anymore. They're going to publish their games to at least 2 major console things, so PC and their own native Xbox. Plus, they're going to be doing a bunch of other stuff, so it's really cool and something to look forward to. These are the type of people who are now funding Fogbank, and who have been giving money to these projects that Mark and the team have been working on. So that's that's kind of where we're at with this whole situation. This is not everything that I know, but this is a large bulk of what I knew about Joplin and what was being worked on. Was that minus the nitty details, was that this world was built, and it's all really there in the Kotaku article, that they had built this world to be the most choice-driven game that gamers have ever seen for a very, very long time, if not the most choice-ridden game you will ever see. And that got thrown out because EA couldn't see an easy way to monetize it with cheap renewable content, like, you know, microtransactions for clothing for characters that you never see. It's like, good lord.
Oh, I have to wonder how long EA can keep this up, and that's probably a discussion we'll have to put a pin in for another day, because I have to get going here.
Mm-hmm.
But any final thoughts before we wrap up?
A quick reply. Again, guys, for all of you people who are asking questions, who want a little bit more info on this, please join our Discord. We talk about this much more here. Follow us on Twitter. I'm going to try and be a little bit more active there with our official Twitter account. But if you really want some answers to this stuff, and if you really want to stay in depth, I talk a lot more than I should on Discord, and I talk a lot more candidly there. So if you can catch me there, I'm more than willing to chat about this kind of stuff in between the other projects that I'm running. A quick reply to Danny. Fog bank is actually that's a single word, and a fog bank is basically the fog that rolls in on the coastline, and that you suddenly are, you know, delved into basically another world. If you've ever been in like really thick fog that drowns out sound and noise and everything, and you're just standing there 1 minute on a beach, sunny, and you can see the sky and everything. The next minute you're engulfed in this world that you can't even see the sun, and everything suddenly is strange and silent and not normal. That's what they want. That's the type of experience that they want to give you, and that's why they named their company Fogbank. They want you to, when you click the game, they want you to be thrown into a world that you barely recognize, that is so immersive and so deep that you feel that you could be lost forever in it. That's that's what they mean by that. So a little bit of an artistic thing there.
Lemon Kebab says, LOL, Saib. Of course, that's the one question you would decide to answer. Unfortunately, there are a lot of great questions and a lot of great comments in the chat today. I liked Lemon Kebab's comment about how, to be fair, Anthem could use some dragons. Unfortunately, we are very short on time today, so we kind of had to rush through this. Discord link is in the description if you want to... Yeah. If you want to talk to us there, and especially if you want to talk to Saib about any of these things, he's got the in at BioWare, so he definitely has a lot of info about all of this kind of stuff. But we talk about all kinds of other fun stuff over there as well. So definitely hit the link in the description to join our Discord server. And if you haven't already, please slam that like button to tell YouTube that you appreciate this content, and it tells us as well. And the more you guys appreciate this, the more we'll try and do things like this. We definitely try to, whenever we can, to bring you the latest news and updates from the gaming industry. Don't forget that our live podcast happens twice a week, Tuesdays and Fridays, right here on the Triple S League YouTube channel, noon Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern time. We go into a lot more depth, and we have more chat interaction on those as well. So definitely join us for that. Thank you all so much for listening. Don't forget to like and sub, and we will talk to you